Hi, everybody. Welcome to NewsNite for Friday, March 16th. Great to have you with us. Hope you're enjoying the beginning of your St. Patrick's Day weekend. We have some great conversation tonight. When is it nepotism and when is it good hiring? We'll talk about a local story making headlines this week. What is our governor going to do with our taxes now? Some are asking. We'll get to that topic as well. And fewer places to vote. Does it really make a big difference on Election Day? Those stories and more next on NewsNite. Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us this week. Some good topics. Let's meet our panel. Steve Hoffman joins us this week from the Akron Beacon Journal. Phil Trexler is also here this week. Good to see you from the Akron Beacon Journal. And great to welcome freelance contributor and journalist Jody Miller here this week. And we are completely lacking in green for the St. Patrick's Day. Our crew doesn't have green on. You guys aren't wearing green.
You have a little green in your tie.
Well, I'm colorblind.
Well, I know. Yes, there is green in there, yes.
Good job. A little bit of color. Working on it.
But and the crew wanted to give us green water, but nobody brought the food coloring.
That would start a whole other story.
Yeah,
I think of why the water was green. But from seeing green to seeing red, there are folks that are upset about what some consider nepotism. The county fiscal officer, Kristen Scalise, has hired the daughter of Jill Scapin and her husband Jeff, who both work for the county. When is it nepotism and when is it just good hiring?
Well, it's interesting in this particular place, in this particular point, because according to the county prosecutor, it would not be nepotism because the hire comes from the County Board of Elections, which, in my estimation, is splitting hairs when that's not part of the county operation and administrative offices. But, you know, Eric, we talk about the appearance of impropriety on the show quite a bit, and I think this is a case where this is the normal viewer, the normal voter gets upset and disillusioned when he sees this kind of thing. This is an instance where Jill's daughter was in fact, and Jill is a friend of mine, but Jill's daughter was in fact let go in the downsizing at the Board of Elections. And all of a sudden now she's in Kristen Scalise's office. And it was she took a job that was not posted, for which there were no other candidates, and she just kind of went into it. And I think this is the kind of thing that gives politics a bad name. When you see that this was not open to the public, and there's no question that perhaps she is qualified, but I think the process was subverted in this case.
Well,
and that's when people get upset.
We don't even know she's the best candidate because there were no other candidates except and you know, this is the kind of thing that goes on all the time. Both parties do it. You know, the Scapins are not the only family that has multitude of people working there. There's other ones that are there. I just think that this just goes on all the time, and people are fed up with it, but I also question whether they're going to remember it back in November. But this goes on all the time, and it is. It's reprehensible that it happens.
People will, I think, remember it back in November because the party that's running against whoever has been perceived as an offender is going to make sure.
And this was an issue back, 2000 when Drew Alexander was running against Sheriff Warren. And there was, claims of nepotism back then, and Alexander used that to his advantage and catapulted into the seat there, becoming a nobody and becoming an elected official.
Yeah, there's been much hair splitting by the prosecutor's office about people who transfer from one part of county government to another part, whether they're grandfathered. That was one of the issues with the Scapin's daughter, that she was hired at the Board of Elections before this nepotism rule went into effect. To me, I don't care about these rulings by the prosecutor's office are almost indecipherable. They are so hair-splitting, they're ridiculous. The voters approved a charter amendment in 2006 that said if your family, if you have a high elected official or a high-level administrative official, which Jill Scapin certainly is. Her husband works for the building department part-time at $70,000 a year. But clearly Jill Scapin, at over $100,000 a year, is a high-level public official. And her daughter gets hired by the fiscal officer under these circumstances, as Jody's alluding to. No one else is interviewed. Who knows? There's no merit in this process whatsoever. It was done quietly. Well, come on. This is not what the voters had in mind whatsoever when they approved that charter amendment in 2006. Probably in the long term, it would be better if the county went to a more merit-based system of hiring, an open system of hiring. But in the short run, we have this nepotism rule. It's in the charter. The prosecutor's office seems to be able to invent any number of ways around it, whether it was Al Brubaker's son being hired into the Board of Elections, or whether it's Jill Scapin's daughter going from the board to the fiscal office. They seem to find no problem with it.
We have a Democratic prosecutor, a Democratic county executive. Kristen Scalise is a Democrat, so it is the same party.
Yeah.
Well, and Steve is right. The intent of the voters' approval of this particular amendment was to prevent this exact kind of thing from happening.
Okay, playing devil's advocate for a moment. The county has said that this is the person we most trust to run this office. So shouldn't the county respect their judgment that if they think this is the best person for the job, that we should just trust their judgment to hire somebody?
Let's go through the motions of having some other candidates apply. Who knows who's the best qualified?
But the criticism there, Phil, is always, why did we go through the motions if you knew who you were going to hire in the first place?
You know, it just looks, the appearance looks bad, and what's also most offensive, they don't care. They know that it's going to look bad. They know that this is not going to be some secret. There's no shame involved. They do it, and they'll continue to do it, and they don't care.
Well, and the way this transition worked out, it was seamless. You know, she had no break in her employment whatsoever. You know, she just kind of slides in to replace Nikki Sipe in the fiscal office. Well, Nikki Sipe hasn't really left yet, but she's announced her intent to retire. So they're training. That's one of the they're training. I forget Hegnauer, Jill Scapin's daughter. His last name is Hegnauer. They're training her for this job. So if she's so qualified, why is it necessary for Nikki Sipe to stay around any more than 30 seconds to train her? You know, I mean, come on.
It just, in my estimation, it just shows poor judgment on the part of the people who should be. It's like the wolf is watching the hen house in some respects. And don't forget, it makes, I think, the executive and Kristen Scalise vulnerable, particularly during an election year, as we have said before. But also, and we haven't talked about it a lot on the show, is the whole Jimmy DeMora stuff that went up in Cuyahoga County. And I mean, voters at this time, and I think citizens at this time, are looking at how county government, whether it's a charter form or a commission form, how it works. And this is the kind of thing that turns people off. It really does.
Well, in Cuyahoga County, it was literally, you need your wife to get a job, you put $5,000 in a bag, and you give it to somebody who gives it to somebody who gives it to Jimmy.
Which is, and I'm not saying it's comparable in this respect, but I mean, you've got citizens out there who have a tendency to relate the two.
Right. The other point I make quickly is that we're downsizing. I know that the county wants to start some hiring now, but the last few years we've had terrible downsizing in county government. And that places a premium on finding the best people to fill the slots that you are filling. So you need so that's my argument for more of a merit-based system, whether it's classified or unclassified. And obviously, Kristen Scalise she didn't even bother going through the motions.
So was it a rookie mistake? This is her first time out doing this kind of thing?
Clearly, it's calculated, it's planned, it's talked about, This is not some...
You're saying she anticipated that it would end up on the front of the Beacon Journal, that we would be talking about it?
If it's not, then it really goes to inexperience, because something like this just isn't... A hire like that isn't made and then ignored.
Yeah, people have been talking about this for weeks.
Sure, but again, it goes to arrogance. They don't care. They know it's going to be a bad story for one day, and then it's going to fade away, and it's back to the status quo. It happens with every hire of every family member that occurs in the county.
Are you saying if they had posted the job and conducted interviews that the public would be more understanding?
Well, it would look a little bit better. The appearance would be better. You know, even if you're just going through the motions, at least you would have, an opportunity for other candidates to come in. But
or if you'd waited a little while, I mean, if the daughter had been out of work for a while, left the Board of Elections, and then later on, 6 months later or 3 months later, picked up a job in the county. But the fact that it was just, such a perfect. There was no interruption in flow, so to speak. It was.
Yeah, and Phil, I'm remembering the story that you did a year ago on Sheriff Alexander catching grief about hiring these part-time home inspectors who were just former police officers.
Right, friends.
Is it considered nepotism when they're just friends?
Well, and that's the thing too. It doesn't have to be a relative. There's friends, and if one office holder can't hire his child, another office holder will hire that guy's child. It's all incestuous here, shameless incestuous.
Too often in life, it's not what you know necessarily; it's who you know. But I think in county government, it should be held to a higher standard.
It's who you're related to.
Wow. I want to talk about where we move this, if there is better accountability, as we move the conversation out to newsnight.net.
For more NewsNight content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at newsnight.net.
There are topics that some criticize should have been brought up during the State of the State address, but instead the governor now is talking about tax changes that he wants to make. And, Steve, these are pretty sweeping, at least in some arenas that are not going well with either party.
Yeah, one of the things that we wondered about is, the governor, we criticized his State of the State speech for being rambling, incoherent, and not having any real big policy initiatives in it. Well, it turns out he was in the middle of this biennium budget review, this mid-year budget review, which is unprecedented, and now he's got all these ideas. So, one question is, where were these? These are not the pieces of legislation at this point. So basically, he said to the legislature, he's got taxes, education, local government, a number of topics that are very complicated. None of this is in legislative language yet. The committees don't know what to do. Bill Batchelor, the House Speaker, says he's not sure when the legislature is going to be able to color Easter eggs. It's going to be such a time crunch. But the big thing in this initiative is to increase taxes on oil and gas drillers. This would not be as onerous as other states. It would be a start. The taxes would go up to 4% of the value of what's being extracted. Surrounding states have 5, Michigan and West Virginia. Texas is 7.5. So it would raise a significant amount of money. What the governor has in mind, in our opinion, much of this money should go to help communities deal with the economic impact of this mass drilling, thousands of new rigs. It's a zero-sum game. He's going to give it back to the voters in income tax.
Is it enough where it would make a difference?
No. The Federal Reserve Bank in Cleveland and others have studied. We just have been through a 21% decrease in the state income tax. And while this decrease was taking place over the years, our growth and job creation was anemic. So there's a very little effect of this kind of tax rate. It'd be about a tank of gas for the average person.
So the average person's not going to run and buy a new car, Joey, or sell their home.
Not at all. And the problem with this, not that it's a problem, it sounds good, okay? It is maybe a politically expedient kind of publicity event. But it really doesn't do any good, because at the same time that he is going to tax the oil and gas drillers and then turn around and give Ohioans a tax cut, he's also cutting local tax funds, local government tax funds. The estate tax is going to go away. So it's a good thing he's giving the taxes back to the local citizens, because local governments are going to have to increase their tax structure to pay for the things that the state has taken away. It's like a shell game again, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So.
It is robbing Peter to pay Paul, because of all the cuts from the state funding to the local governments. They're hurting. Somewhere the money's going to have to come back. Taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill to help out the local government. So
Isn't this the same governor who was championing the oil and gas drilling because of all the jobs it was going to bring, and now he's saying, I'm going to be tough on them and get more tax money?
Yeah, but he's got to be tough on them, because you've got situations like a report that came out last week that the wastewater that was injected into the well in Youngstown, the injection well had the wastewater from fracking, the process of fracking, because there was a fault down there, could in fact be causing the earthquakes that were happening in Youngstown. Right. There are still a lot of environmental issues that need to be addressed, and part of what he has done, to his credit, is to increase the regulations on the oil and gas drillers so that they are in fact going to be obligated to report the kinds of chemicals that are going into these wells, into the fracking process. So at the same time he's going to be taxing them, he is also, I think, helping, or he wants the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to increase the oversight on those, which is good, because the last thing you want to do is bring the economy up in Ohio and 10 years from now find out that this is a state you can't live in because everything's going to blow up. Yeah. So that's good.
In the sense of the basic philosophy of a severance tax, this oil and natural gas is under Ohio, deep under Ohio. In a sense, it's everybody's resource. So the idea of a severance tax is that, in a sense, these drillers are getting a windfall. They're tapping a natural resource. This is a one-time thing. Once it comes out of the ground and it's used up, it's gone. So the idea is to increase the severance tax, and the oil and gas industry says, oh, if you raise the taxes too high, they'll all go somewhere else. Okay, fine. I just don't see that. They know that there's a ton of this oil and gas, especially natural gas under Ohio. They're not going to go anywhere. So you raise it to a level that does two things. That one, it provides, as Jody's saying, enough resources to properly regulate it. And I will give Casey credit as well for having a strong regulatory structure on. They want to know what's in these chemicals that are being pumped underground. They want to know how it's being disposed of. They want proper well casings. That's a concrete sleeve that prevents this stuff when it comes back up from contaminating groundwater supplies, which are much higher than where the oil and gas is. So there's a lot of good in here. But overall, in the terms of taxation, it's not enough. It's not a high enough level. And B, it's directed in a very inefficient way, in probably the most inefficient way. The people who are going to get the biggest benefit out of this are the wealthy people. Mm-hmm. And they've already been getting a break. They just got a 21% break. And, I haven't seen factories sprouting up all over Summit County because we've had some. But, this is ridiculous. Now, there is a $25,000 per well fee that would go to the local governments. This is another shell game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, up front, the locals will get $25,000 per well. But it would have to be paid back to the drillers over time, presumably, and it doesn't say in the governor's handouts, presumably through some kind of tax rebate that the local government would give. So now you're asking the local government to, okay, you get $25,000, but then you got to pay it back through some kind of tax break. And by the way, we're going to cut, we've cut your local government funds and we've cut the estate tax.
And by the way, we've run our trucks and our rigs over your county roads and your township roads, and unfortunately they've been destroyed because of that, and as a result you're going to have to fix them.
Could they hook them up with some free gas maybe?
But also, too, you remember, too, the landowner who gets money through leases, obviously they're going to get less money. When these companies have to shell out more money for taxes and for local governments, the landowner is going to be
So
short.
at what point do the educators start raising their hands? Going.
Exactly. Hey, we need some money for school. It is a fair question for school because some of the critics of his giving the income tax break, some of those critics have said, hey, wait a minute, we've cut social services around the state and in communities. We have needs in education. His plan now is that, every third grader must read at grade level before they can be promoted into fourth grade. And yet, why didn't he take this money and use it for intervention specialists, reading intervention specialists, to make sure that those kids did, in fact, were in fact able to read, or like Phil said, preschool.
So is this a bad application of what would be a good idea?
Yes, that's a fair. I think so. There's no question that the severance tax needs to go up. Ohio is very, very low in its tax rates, and so and like I said, these drillers are champing at the bit to get here. It would take a huge. You could go, in my opinion, you could go to Texas's rate. And they'd still come here, but you don't. The governor is trying to balance this out, and I think he's doing the right thing. You don't want to have an onerous regulatory and tax burden on people who are coming in and creating jobs, which the estimates are all over the map, but there will be jobs created due to this. So you don't want to get in the way of that. We need the jobs. There's no whether they're in construction or whether they're in operating these rigs or whether a refining facility, whatever. We need them. But you also need to be careful and make sure you're steering resources where they need to go and taking care of some of these other problems.
But if you tax them and regulate them, Jody, is it going to make people feel any better about fracking in their backyard?
Only if they can come clean and say, hey, we are in fact going to be very, very vigilant in terms of what that process is going to do or could potentially do to our environment. And hopefully that will be part of this whole package. I guess at this point, our hope is that the General Assembly gets together, takes some of these ideas, and crafts some workable solutions that are going to be for the benefit of everybody, rather than just expedient, here's your income tax back.
Well, as you mentioned the Assembly and where we go next, that's where I want to move the conversation now as we talk further on NewsNite.net.
On NewsNite.net, we cover a broader range of topics than we can on the air in 27 minutes. Be part of the conversation on our Facebook page and at NewsNite.net.
Just when you thought the voting was finally all settled, it is not. We are looking at changes here in Summit County and voting precincts, and it never ends, the changes here.
It never ends because the budget is being cut for the Summit County Board of Elections. They don't like it. They keep trying to think of ways to save money. They did get rid of some personnel earlier, which was a good thing. The Secretary of State, they have all these tie votes. There are 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats on the board. They tie, then it goes to Secretary of State. So he broke another tie, this time on reducing the number of precincts in Summit County as a cost-saving measure. It'll happen before the November election, so a lot of people will be confused. They're going to try to alleviate that. The trouble is the savings is not significant that they're projecting. I think it's less than $200,000 is projected. And the other difficulty with this is it's a 43% reduction in the number of precincts. It's pretty steep. It would take Summit below where Lucas and Montgomery County are in terms of their precincts. So you got to begin to wonder on the Republican side of this. You got 2 Republicans on the board, then a Republican Houston breaking the tie. I have to wonder, are we drifting into the territory of suppressing the vote, which is part of the Republican game plan, whether it's voter ID, whether it's how you sign the absentee ballot envelope. This is a concerted effort on the part of the party all over the country to place barriers in front of people. And this type of reduction in precincts could be a problem for some folks.
Well, and to me, it's the Board of Elections is going to be approved. I think Summit County Council is going to approve their budget for this year at $4.7 million. The counties that Summit is most frequently compared to in this process happen to be Lucas and Montgomery. Both of them operate with a budget of about 3.1 or 3.3 million, and they do it efficiently. You know, so my contention is, why has it taken the Board of Elections as long as it has taken? They knew back in 2008 that they were going to have to make some cuts and some reductions, and they have not done that. You know, I think that what they need to do, or the county needs to do, or somebody needs to do, is to go into Montgomery, Lucas County, find out from a top-down to the bottom-down process, how are they able to do it with less money and do it as accurately as they do, with 100 more precincts than what the Republicans are now proposing here in Summit County.
Well, that would take some people in office who actually care and aren't shameless. And the fact is, I think that Summit County were far more political. I mean, that is a feeding ground for just political infighting, and that's the heart of it all in Summit County is the Board of Elections.
Montgomery County has the city of Dayton, which in many ways is very comparable to Akron, slightly less in the population, but very comparable. So you're not. It is apples to apples. I mean, you still have a big urban center to the middle of the county. So why don't they?
Well, the board in Summit started down this road tentatively in 2009, and then they just kind of stopped. And if you talk, I've talked to election officials in both Lucas and Montgomery counties. They started right after the last presidential election because, like Jody's saying, they knew that they're going to have, that 4 years from now we're going to have another presidential election. It happens. And also the economy wasn't looking so hot. So they decided to do some things that I'm not sure Summit can do in the short run. They invested in technology. Both counties use electronic voting. Summit still has this paper system. Montgomery County invested in electronic poll books, so you can update all the voter registration information very quickly, very efficiently. Again, that costs money. That's an upfront cost. Well, they did that early. They've paid it off. Now they're getting the savings. And the other issue that's come up over and over again is how you utilize your employees. Are they cross-trained? Do they flex? Do they do different things? Summit County has a huge part-timer budget. So the question is, why can't we train our full-time employees better and use them more efficiently and get rid of some of these part-timers? Well, they throw up their hands, we can't do this. Well, other people have. It just takes time.
But who are these part-timers and who are these employees? They're all relatives of people who work in the government. I mean, I'm not...
We've hit a theme with you today.
Well, it is.
It's true.
And these are all patronage positions, and they're not going to cut their cousin's job. They're not going to cut Uncle Charlie's gig. These are lucrative positions with great benefits, and, from both sides, Democrats and Republicans alike. And it's just, there has to be some fiscal responsibility. There's not, and it's...
Well, Russ Pry, the county executive, is trying to impose.
Yeah,
he's a former board member.
Yeah.
He's trying to impose some discipline, but you have the Republican Party chairman, Alex Oshenkoff, and the Democratic Party chairman, Wayne Jones, sitting on the Board of Elections. all the positions, every position at the Board of Elections is a patronage position. There's no merit-based hiring in sight. Not even for, I don't know, maybe for the janitor or somebody, but I don't even think for that.
So it's managed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a built-in resistance to change, but there's no money for this. Their budget request was $9.3 million.
Well, while you say they knew, some are saying who knew that State Senator Nina Turner would make national headlines this week. With a couple of minutes to go, Jody, this got your attention.
Oh, it got my attention. I love it. I absolutely love it. Nina Turner has proposed a bill in the House, the Ohio House, House Bill 307, I believe it is, that would require men who go to doctors for erectile dysfunction issues, who are prescribed Viagra or Cialis or a drug of this sort, to have to undergo psychological counseling, to have a second opinion about the need for this, and to make sure that they are given the information to understand the kind of health risks that this kind of medication can pose. And while this bill, I think, is offered in a rather satirical and tongue-in-cheek way, I think Senator Turner has made her point in terms of in a country and in a state where we have so many problems with job losses, with the economy, with education, why has the main issue, it seems to be, become women's reproductive health? And, you know, her point is if men want to make sure that women are taken care of and understand the complexities of their own reproductive health, the least we could do is make sure that they're taken care of, too.
Right. With all that's going on in Ohio, we're going to worry about men's erectile dysfunction issues.
Well, with all that's going on in Ohio, why are we worried about
Viagra does not just benefit men; it benefits women as well. And the fact is that we have bigger worries in Ohio.
Yes, we do.
We started onto a whole other topic, and we're out of time. But we are going to continue this on the internet. But let's go ahead and say goodbye to the broadcast audience. Jody, Phil, Steve, thanks for being with us. Go over to newsnight.net. You can watch this discussion that's about to continue, plus the broadcast in its entirety. See you next Friday right here for Newsnight.